is Saturday, the 7th of November. It's 3:42 for me. It's 2:42 for James. Welcome to the PP podcast.
Hello everyone. I like how you date these episodes so that
I don't know. I quite like it.
there is that comparison of people will know how backed up we are.
Yeah. Instead of it being 11 o'clock, it's 4 p.m. nearly for me.
Yeah. But yes, podcast, chatty films. What you got? Any burning ones you want to talk about?
Yeah, I got a couple that I'm like.
I will. Let me just throw out the films I've seen this week. Actually,
Go for it.
And then you can tell me if there's any you're interested in talking about.
Go for it.
So I watched Hereditary.
We can talk about
which was
that.
A horror movie.
Yep.
Erin Brockovich.
Not heard of that.
And Borat subsequent movie film.
I've actually not seen Borat 2, but you can tell. So we can talk about Hereditary, and you can tell me if Borat 2 is worth watching.
I would say if you like Borat, then watch Borat 2.
Cool, I'll watch it then.
It doesn't fall flat. It is more of the same, but
yeah,
I think they do enough to make it worth watching a second one.
Okay.
So maybe watch it and then we can talk about
it.
So and what films have you seen? What do you want to throw into the mixes?
I have seen. I watched Commando, which is 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger, ridiculous, over-the-top action. That's self-aware, really good. I want to talk a little bit about that at least. And
maybe I actually really have a soft spot for films with Arnie in.
Okay, watch that shit.
I think he's great.
He's so good.
I will try to get Commando watched, and then we can talk about it.
Cool, do that. And then I watched Boogie Nights with oh god, these fucking people with their names. Paul W.S. Anderson or whatever, whichever one it is, the good Anderson. That's not Wes. The other one.
I don't actually know who you mean. But,
ignore me. I'm just trying shit.
1997 apparently.
Boogie Nights is really good, and I also watched Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which stars what's it called? John C. Reilly. It's basically a piss take on music biopic movies and how shit and pointless they are, and it's 2 hours long and it just spends the entire time taking the piss out of them. It's really funny. It's got loads of good actors in it, just with little scenes and stuff, and the tagline is so good. It's he's had sex with 400 women. He's become addicted to and kicked every single drug known to man. He has uncontrollable fits of rage and anger. Oh, it's so good. Films like Rocket Man and the Freddie Mercury one, stuff like
Bohemian
that.
Rhapsody.
I'm not gonna lie, I fucking hate those movies. I watched Rocket Man, and I was I don't fucking care. Elton John's really good, and I like a lot of his songs. Yeah, he did a lot of drugs, great. So did literally everyone in the 70s, stuff like that. I find them just to be so dull, and all the different traumas that every musician has. You're basically watching the same movie every time, just with a slightly different trauma. They're all shot in the same way, and they all play the same way. I'm I do not care. And this movie just takes up to 11. My favorite bit is
it didn't. I'm not quite that far in. They're definitely never going to get more than a 3 from me.
Yeah.
Right. They're mostly okay. They're mostly a 2. I don't hate them. Rocket Man I actually liked. I thought Bohemian Rhapsody was a bit meh.
I just found
Um,
it so boring.
Rocketman I liked. I've probably seen one or two more, but maybe it helps that those are the only two I can really think of
Yeah,
that I've ever seen. So I would probably start to like the next one I watch. I'd be like, oh, it's just the same again,
yeah.
and then the one after, and then after that, I'd be done with them.
I'd rather just watch the documentary. Like, I don't need like
Yeah,
a dramaticized thing because it was dramatic enough. Their lives were crazy enough without it being like a spectacle as well.
that's true. Actually, what I do often, I'm often left after these films feeling a bit almost like cheated because I read about
Yeah,
it and it's like it's just not how it
yeah,
happened, or there's like 10 people disputing it or unhappy with that portrayal,
exactly. I'm just
and
like,
I am a bit like, yeah, it does make it feel a bit false.
and they're just a bit. They just glorify a lot of it as well. Like, I always just feel like obviously they were either very talented people or very like interesting people, but I feel like the majority of the time it's just a gigantic wank fest, like a huge wank fest, and I'm just like, I'm not here for that. Like, I'm not gonna watch a dramatized version of like a footballer's life, even if I really liked the footballer and the way he kicked the ball real good, like because
Yeah,
half the time they're cunts. Like, I'm just not.
yeah, like they've got to have like a real interesting story, and then also, um, like why have you done it as a drama? Like I really felt with Bohemian Rhapsody, like I really like Queen,
Great song.
love so much of Queen's music, and I think it is really interesting. Like so many of the songs, when you know more about Freddie
Yeah,
Mercury, have additional meaning, and just it does add something to their music. I think when you know those elements of his life, but I was kind of left I don't know. For a lot of it, I was feeling like, why am I watching somebody pretending to be Freddie Mercury?
yeah, that's so real.
Because he's just such a strong character and had like such a presence on stage. You're even if your impression is really good, you're just not. It's just off. Like I don't think the guy did a bad job of pretending to be, doing
Yeah,
Freddie, but it just isn't the same. You just don't have that same energy. There's just something
yeah,
missing.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, and that fell a bit flat. Like, because I've been to see a Queen tribute band,
Oh yeah,
and yeah, for the acts, the guy does his Freddie Mercury impression in the songs and things, but he wasn't like really like trying to be Freddie in between the
right,
acts.
right, okay.
I don't feel like he was like himself. This is a tribute. I love the music. I love doing this act,
That's fair.
but there was sort of more of this awareness that like he's not Freddie Mercury. He's just
Yeah,
like it is a tribute. Whereas in the film, it's like everything with the teeth, the way he's trying to imitate the way he talked. Like
yeah,
I don't know. It was. I get where you're coming from. Like it was a bit off.
yeah.
Not abysmal. It was interesting to learn. There was elements I didn't know, um, but I do often think that I get more out of reading the Wikipedia article
Yeah,
after than watching the
I
film.
I much prefer going on like a deep dive wiki hole of like, here are the band members, here's what drugs they were addicted to, here are the scandals they went through, here's like, how their lives fell apart and came together multiple times in the time that they were alive. I find it way more interesting to read about it and stuff like that. Or I'd rather read a book about them or something like that instead of getting this like sanitized, Hollywooded version. Because I'm just like, it just feels almost pointless. I'm like, yeah, I know Freddie Mercury. He was really fucking cool, and he had a great voice, and he did lots of good songs. And he unfortunately died of a horrible disease. It's very sad. I don't need a fucking movie about it.
Yeah, it's like it's like when you read like oh, that character was actually an amalgamation of these three different
Yeah, I
people.
fucking hate that. That's the word.
But they gave him the name of one of the characters, and or like, they portrayed somebody as being a horrible person or as a wonderful person,
Yeah,
and then there's a load of people complaining after that either you made them look really nice, but actually they were a cunt to this person,
yeah,
or you made them look horrible and basically defamed them for 2 hours,
yeah,
and that is just not how they were at all. Like,
legit.
so there is a lot of that in those movies.
Yeah,
It's not, and it's not just like music biopics.
no.
Like there's
I mean,
it's in everything.
like
Like, Wolf of Wall Street is telling a real
the
story.
fucking Social Network.
Um,
Think about how much good press that got Mark Zuckerberg, aka Lizard Man, for like 10 years,
yeah,
and now everyone's like, Facebook is one of the worst things that has happened to like human society ever. It's like a new dark age within technology, like a technological age. He's greasy as fuck. He sells like everyone's data to
yeah,
China. He does all these horrible things like forcing people to sell their island to him and all this nasty, like just billionaire bullshit things. Um, and when he was like not testifying to Congress, but Congress called him in and were like, "We need to have a chat, Mister." And he was like trying to make excuses or pass things along. And he's there, like bloodshot eyes, sweaty, bad haircut, and you're like, he's a lizard. He's literally a lizard man. But 10 years
yeah,
ago, Jesse Eisenberg did a great job of portraying him in a movie by I can't remember who it was.
yeah. It's Fincher,
It's Fincher,
David
yeah, it's
Fincher.
fucking Fincher, and it's like
So like as a movie, as a
that's a
if
movie.
that was just a
Yeah,
drama, I like The Social Network.
exactly, same.
It's got a flawed but charismatic lead, and but then the elements of it that are tied to reality are really like more disturbing than perhaps a film makes
hmm
it, or like Jesse Eisenberg and Mark Zuckerberg are not the same.
No, they are not. That's at all.
um, and yeah, so there's some films that, like Zodiac is another, about the
Yeah,
Zodiac
yeah.
killer. Have you seen Zodiac?
No, I've not, but I know it. I basically know the
But
movie. Yeah.
yeah, when I've read about it, it's kind of lauded as one of the most accurate um, stories based on true
Right, right.
events. And actually, it's one of the ones I enjoy the most.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's very rare that I give them more than like a three. They're mostly like two and maybe a three because I'm being generous and like I was interested enough to read more
Yeah,
after. But Zodiac's like a solid four, and it is partly like that authenticity.
exactly.
Like they've shot and dramatized a sequence, but that's like how it happened.
That matters a lot to me.
So it's not. So when you watch it, or at least when you read about it after, there's none of that disappointment or just feeling cheated.
Yeah,
It's like, no, that is an insane story, and yeah, I now know more about it, and I've watched it as a film rather than having to read about it. Um,
yeah.
Interestingly, Erin Brockovich, that I've watched, is also based on a true
Okay.
story. And I enjoyed it. I liked it. So, but also Erin, the titular character, she's been quoted as saying it's like 98% what happened.
Right, right.
So just as a brief, it's about this woman who starts working for a law firm as like a basically like a secretary.
Okay.
She's not a lawyer, but she notices some oddities about this like real estate case with this big like chemical company. I think it is.
I've not seen it, but I actually do know this movie. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. So just about how she starts to uncover all the dodgy stuff this company's
Hmm.
doing, and her story. And yeah, like I really liked the movie, and then I read about it after, and like at the very least, um, the main characters, the main people it's based on, say, yeah, is pretty much how it happened. Um, that movie Bernie with Jack Black, I can't remember if I mentioned it
Oh yeah, yeah,
on the podcast, but that's based on a true story. They included cutaways to real residents talking about the
yeah.
events. You kind of aren't sure whether they're actors, and then at the end it reveals, yeah, these are all the real people who were
Right,
there.
that's good. That's good.
So they've intercut the drama with that, and it just leaves a better kind of taste in your mouth
Yeah,
after you've watched the film, because you can kind of trust what you've been shown.
yeah. I feel
Um,
like I'm not saying that like stuff based on true stories is a like just in general is bad because it's not. But if something does take liberties or amalgamates a couple of characters into one character, like a couple of people into one character or things like that, as long as you put something at the start that says we made this, we spiced this up a little bit. We're not gonna lie. Do you know Narcos? All about the drug cartels in Colombia and then Mexico on Netflix. They put a
yeah,
big thing at the start of every episode, like we made it cooler for the TV, and I'm like, cool. Like I know it's a bit over the top and silly at times, and it dramatizes it to fuck, but at least it's not
yeah,
pretending, and that makes me
yeah.
feel
Well,
better about it
because like that series, like it shows you here's our dramatization, and then it cuts to like real
all the
footage
time.
at times. So it's like, here's what happened, back to the
Yeah,
story.
like
Like they've turned this into a story, but like at key points they say, no, yeah, they bombed this
yep.
place, or this gunfight on the rooftops
And here's
happened.
the picture.
Um, Here's the picture. This bit is real. Obviously, we don't know what conversation this man had with his wife. Like,
Yeah, but here's what
partway
really
through,
happened.
like like this is a dramatization to make it into a series. You know a bit more what's going on. But yeah, the films are presented in the same way as if they were a
Yeah,
excuse me, as if they were a documentary almost.
and I
So
can't deal with that.
it is a bit more deceiving
Yeah,
almost.
and that's why the movie is so good because it just shits on all the tropes, and yet somehow, at the very end of the movie, still manages to be heartfelt. Still manages to leave you feeling like that was very, very funny, but I still feel a little bit warm inside at the end. And there's loads of good reviews like I laughed for an hour and
That's good.
59 minutes and then I cried for the final minute. How the fuck does a film do that? And don't get me wrong, it's not a 5, it's a 3 or a 4 for most people, I'd say. But it's still pretty.
Yeah,
I think it's a worthwhile 4. It's pretty cool. It's very fucking funny. Like I was full on
yeah,
pissing myself
yeah,
at
yeah.
various points.
Yeah, like I try not to get too bogged down in my, like I think if you look on Letterboxd, I've given Bernie a 3 and I've given Rocketman a
Yeah,
3, whereas I've probably just been more positive about Bernie than Rocketman. But then again, I could have come at a different angle and said I really enjoyed basically just listening to music in
yeah,
Rocketman. I kind of did watch it like it was a fake story in between a few of Elton John's numbers, just to give more of a feel to them.
yeah.
And when you watch it like that, you enjoy the film more. So, like I'm not sweating too much about exactly where I've bucketed them.
Hmm.
Just how much did I enjoy them in comparison? Um, but yeah, when you're talking about films based on reality, I respect it more if it's been more true,
Definitely.
more true to life. And I am also a bit of a sucker for like in Aaron Brockovich, where it's like here's a case where the little people actually
Yeah,
won,
of course. You need stuff
and
like
it
that.
wasn't just stuff where the big corporation is kind of called out. And even if it is a bit weird because it's like Hollywood calling out corporate greed, or like
Yeah,
you know like as though they're not like absolutely full of it in a lot of ways, but it doesn't make the movie any less valid.
Yeah.
It doesn't make the criticism of those companies any less
You know,
valid.
the writers and the director still cared, obviously, because they wrote the story and directed the story, you know, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, and sometimes about like I've got it's only like a meh movie really, but I've got quite a bit of respect for the Laundromat
Laundromat. I heard of
um,
that.
because it's about shell companies. It's about
Oh my
people
god.
buying companies within companies and like just how dodgy that is
Yeah.
basically. But like that is so dry,
Yeah, that is pretty dry.
right? Like the legal nuances of how that works is so dry, but they managed to make an okay film.
That's fair play.
It's like it was probably like a 2, but actually with what they were working with, it's a minor miracle that I actually could sit down and watch it in its entirety. You know, like how they made it like a little bit interesting.
Bloody hell. Yeah.
um, and that's another one where I'm a bit like, yeah, it's not right that stuff like this people just accept. So a film that just says this is dodgy as fuck is actually has that gives it some merit. Like that film has a reason to exist.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Completely agree. But
Anyway,
yeah.
on non-actual, just fictional films.
You said you watched Hereditary. What did you think?
Yeah. So I watched this on Halloween.
Oh, that's good. Nice.
This was I was on with a couple of my old housemates, and we'd done a movie night before where we'd watched Hubie Halloween,
Oh yeah,
the
yeah.
Adam Sandler one, and like it was fun to like all be together and laugh at a terrible movie
Yeah.
and make fun of it, but we didn't want to do that again.
That's fair.
We were like, okay, it's actually Halloween. I want to watch a film that we think at least might be good.
Oh god.
And so we put on Hereditary, and we actually all kind of felt similar.
Yeah.
In that, for a lot of the film, we really liked it. I was feeling really positive about the
Okay.
film, and then the ending happened.
Right. Okay.
So, on the positives, have you seen this?
Yeah, I gave it 3 stars.
Um, it didn't rely on jump scares.
No, which is good.
Or cheap tactics, but still managed to make me feel really tense. Built up a lot of tension, had some dramatic and horrible things happen, kind of toyed with the idea of the supernatural, and brought it in to make you feel tense, but was really grounded in like this family and what was happening to them, and the fact that they were a bit messed up.
Just a little bit.
Well, okay, completely messed up. And then the film, in like its last, I don't even know, 15, 20 minutes, just goes mental.
It does go pretty
Suddenly,
crazy.
like, all the tension it's been building, the whole film, is kind of just spent. But for me, it was spent in a way that was almost comical, and it just lost me. So like it had 5 minutes of just going mad, and I stopped caring, and I'm watching the last 10 minutes of the film, which really should be the payoff for everything I've just been watching. And I was watching the last 10 minutes with almost ambivalence.
Yeah, I'm just gonna,
Um,
because I'm gonna very quickly just read the last bit of the movie because I can remember. I know the end. I know the fucking kid gets possessed by the weird god or whatever, but I can't remember like
yeah.
the specific last sort of 10, 15 minutes because doesn't.
So I
Go on,
guess
sorry.
I can't remember timing, but what I'm talking about is there's all the tension between him and his mum.
Yeah.
And obviously his sister has died. and that's causing a lot of tension within the family.
Mm-hmm.
So his mum is traumatized by that, but obviously already had mental issues before that, essentially.
Yes.
He's having a really tough time with his relationship there, and the dad's struggling, a bit distant. And, I think all that tension worked really well, and it's building up, and she's found somebody's dug up her mum, and her mum's body is in up in the attic.
Yeah.
And like all this is happening, and she feels like she needs to burn the book because whatever spirit is coming is just not the right one. That's not good. And I think that's what was interesting me. It was like I didn't mind that there were supernatural elements, but almost not going supernatural, just having it being this, you're unsure all the time if there's something supernatural going on, or is she just going mental from trauma?
Yeah.
Was really
was
cool.
good.
And maybe she, there was certain things that a direction I thought it was going, and then she throws the book in the fire.
Yes.
The dad sets on fire, and from that moment it just loses it.
Yeah.
So he comes down, and his sister's floating on the ceiling, and you can see in the background, and it's still kind of building tension. But then it snaps. His mum comes sprinting out, and she's running around, and it becomes this ridiculous chase scene. He's sprinting up to the attic as opposed to out the house and into the car. He locks himself in the attic because we know that's where the body and the weird shit is. So that's why he's run up there. His mum flies after him. She's hanging on the ceiling, hammering her head against the wall. We don't know why. His mum was basically the main character for most of this film, that I thought she was the one we were following and getting an insight into. But no, it's now her son, and she's just some possessed demon. And all nuance of her character and that made her interesting is now just gone. She's dead.
She is dead.
Basically. Like, without really any explanation as to why she's snapped. And then it's in the attic, and suddenly she's teleported inside the attic with him. And what's she doing? She's sawing her own head off. Why?
Nope.
We don't know. There's no reason. There's been other people decapitated.
And
so it's a reference to that. And then he throws himself out the window and dies, and is possessed by the spirit of his sister because grandmum had been feeding that child, and she wanted her to be a boy because she wanted to inherit this male spirit. So she'd organised this so that the sister can take the brother's body and then become this demon god from hell that they're all worshipping.
It's I'm not gonna lie, in general, I feel like horror movies just aren't very good. There's a few that I like, but I feel like they might be very good visually. Like Hereditary looks great, Midsommar looks great, The Witch looks great, The Lighthouse looks great, and they'll be like interesting and cool visuals and what's going on. But I find them so unsatisfying. Like I always finish the movie and I'm just bored by the end of it. Hereditary I do like, because that tension for the first 80% of the movie is really good. But as soon as any horror movie devolves into, oh my god, the demon, witch, possessed person's going crazy, they're like a spider on the ceiling, whoa, I'm just alright, fuck me, we've seen this before. It all becomes very samey.
Yeah, I guess the bits that interest me are the psychological elements. And I think partly why I'm so disappointed with Hereditary is because for the first hour and a half at least, it's all this kind of psychological element. The grandma we've been introduced to at the start was obviously messed up and a bit distant.
Freaky.
And perhaps abusive or whatever the word is, which has messed up the mum in particular. So she's a really messed up character who's then experienced trauma, and we're following how that's affected her mentality. And all the seance stuff is great because it's an exploration of how she's trying to connect with the child she's lost. And there's this balance between it kind of being freaky, but also her really needing that closure. But the ending has none of that. The ending is about a demon mum.
Yeah,
There's nothing to relate to. There's nothing to
yeah,
relate to there. You know, and there's nothing kind of. It's just done in too much of an over top way. It just. I feel like it really does just release all its tension, and for kind of it just falls a bit flat. The ending I feel doesn't fit the film.
I agree.
And other horror movies I like, all kind of. I mean, you mentioned The Lighthouse. That is basically two men locked in a lighthouse. You see some weird stuff, but it's all just playing with reality, and you're not because these guys are cooped up. Like you don't really know what they're seeing. It's just about them going crazy, locked up together. The Thing is a horror movie I really, really like. And that's just this psychological element of I don't know in this room who I can trust, and like it's how that's affecting them.
It's great.
It's not about a weird alien monster. Like the stuff involving the monster is absolutely minimal. And the film doesn't end on a note of the thing going completely crazy, really. The film ends on the psychological.
It's great. Like, I love that movie because of the characters. It's fucking Kurt Russell and Keith David just fucking pointing guns at each other for like 2 hours, being like, "Oh no, it's definitely oh." And even when you do see the thing, it's really weird and gross, and it ate that dog, and you know it's like metamorphosizing into different people all the time. You know, it's like it's cool, but it doesn't go mental. It doesn't suddenly grow like 10 feet and has a gun or anything. Like, you know,
because it removes all agency. If there is just some invincible, unkillable demon that's just flying around the place,
it's not interesting. Yeah,
it's not interesting. You know, like there's no okay. So either this creature is going to kill all of our cast, and they can't do anything about it, which is not a story. There's no agency, or there is going to be some bullshit plot twist. Oh, it turns out there was this magic anti-demon book under the bed, which is just as bad in the opposite direction. Whereas it all being in a person's mind, or you know, like they're there with another person and they don't know if that person is real or the thing. Like, I could kill this person with a flamethrower right now, but it's a decision. I have agency. Like, and if it's the thing, I could kill it.
You don't know.
I don't know. It might be a person that I've just murdered my friend. So you have this kind of there is something. There are things that are up in the air about the story. You know, it's telling a story, and I feel like Hereditary promised me a story, and then didn't.
Pretty much. I'd be interested to see what you think about the dude's next film, Midsommar, because
so my Pete, who I watched Hereditary with, had also seen Midsommar, and he made quite a few comparisons. So I do want to see that and see.
There'll be an interesting discussion because I fucking hate that movie. And I think that's probably like the first time, because I'm pretty positive. I'm pretty like lenient, I think. You know, I'm only giving 1 stars to like the bad Pacific Rim sequel or most of M Night Shyamalan's movies because he's a hack, I'm pretty okay. Um, and I think this is one of the first
Yeah.
times where I was like completely against the grain of what people thought. Like I'm the kind of person that sees 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, and if I've watched that movie, I'm like, yeah, I thought it was pretty good as well, everyone. Good job. But this one, I was like, fuck you, 2 stars. Like, you get 2 stars because it looks cool, but you've just bored me for 3 hours. Um, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what you think.
Yeah. I'll let you know. I'll let you know what I think when I've watched it.
Yeah, we don't have time for me to rant about that movie, so let's not. Fuck me.
No, let's not. Cool. So that was some films, some biopics,
Yeah,
and some horror, and basically us venting about
we
our
basically
problems
just
with
ranted about genres
genres.
for 35 minutes, but that's fine.
But that is like
Yeah,
brilliant podcast material
that's what it's
as
all
far as
about.
I'm concerned. Fantastic. On that note,
Goodbye.
bye everyone.